Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Hello and welcome to episode 136 of the Heroic Investing Show. This is a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help current and prior first responders put protections and systems in place to enable them to build a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that they are uniquely gifted to share with the world. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman. And episode 136 is exactly what we just mentioned there at the end of the introduction. People building a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that the industry or that society is asking for, that they're uniquely gifted to share. Our guest today is Owen Meyer. Owen is a West Point graduate from the mid-2000s. He's 33 years old and running an extremely successful startup company in Manhattan. I don't know how often that happens. Startup companies take off in Manhattan. I'm sure there's a lot of young, new companies there, but I also know there's a lot of establishment in that city like there is in just about any other city. And then you take in the food and alcohol arena, so the restaurants and bars, that has, I believe, the highest failure rate of any new business in America. So it was a challenging attempt, a challenging path to go down. But Owen's story is really not about how to make a better drink. It's not about trying to just make a living. It's about someone who looked at their surroundings, an industry they happened to be in as an early job following his time in the military, and saw a need and solved the need. And really underlying everything is that entrepreneurial spirit that Owen demonstrated. I don't think he ever dreamed about being in the alcohol space, being in the entertainment space. I never really heard that from him in our conversations. But he happened to be working in an industry and saw a need, and it didn't really matter what industry or what need, but an entrepreneur sees that, realizes perhaps they have a gift there, or they can partner with people who do have a gift, and they go after it, right? That, to me, is the essence of entrepreneurship. So I'll kind of close with that, too, in our introduction here before we get to Owen. But before, I'd like to just kind of paint a picture for what is Owen's company, Liquor Lab. Well, it's about customer experience. I mean, if you see the actual description, it is teaching individuals and bartenders how to make drinks that are popular and that will provide a good experience for whoever is participating. But it's more, in my opinion, like the trendy experiential events that, as I said, trendy, but they're very popular right now and they're in high demand. Think about the escape rooms that have just absolutely taken over cities across the country. And if you haven't done an escape room with your team, it's a fantastic time. It's similar to very similar to high-end cooking classes, for example, that your team could go and participate in with Williams-Sonoma and some others around the country that are becoming very popular. Last summer, I did something similar to this. I did a fun cooking class with my son Ryan and with other friends of ours when we were on a beach in the Caribbean. And we had I have some great, great memories from that event, certainly with my son Ryan, with our other friends that were there. But I'll tell you, I don't remember very much about what they taught me about how to cook. And it had nothing to do really with the margaritas that were flowing or the fact that they weren't good teachers. It's not why I was there, right? I was there to have an experience with my child, that will last, that we can remember for the rest of our lives, and with our other friends. And so that's what this kind of an event is about. People are seeking ways, more innovative ways, to bond with their teammates, to bond with family, and to create experiences. Because in the end, what really matters, a friend of mine says that there's only two things that you can take with you to the grave. That is experiences and relationships, right? And so people come to funerals because of memories they have of that individual, right? And because of how that individual touched their lives. So I believe that, yes, growing our businesses is important and serving other people are important, but growing the business part, that's just to provide us a way to serve people. And it also provides income and the ability to have experiences with family members. So they work hand in hand, but Owen's company here is not about how to get people drunk more efficiently. Not at all, right? And if you're opposed to the idea of alcohol, that's fine. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is someone who, again, saw a need, right? And so in his company, he was working, he'll explain his background, but he was working for Jim Beam and saw that and attended a few things that were put on by the company or people who were using the product, and they were just extremely boring. I'm sure many of you have been to events like that. I certainly have. You go to a wine tasting, a very snooty event where they talk to you about the important differences to them, at least, of the different kinds of wine or different kinds of whiskey and how it's aged, what barrel it's aged in, right? And and how to swirl the wine around and allow it to breathe. And none of that stuff matters to me. What matters to me is the experience I'm having with my fellow people who are attending. And I've been to a few of those events and looked around and everyone was as bored as I was, but not what happened when I went to the cooking class. So I really related well to what Owen saw as a need in the industry and how he went after it. And his company's doing tremendously well. In 2017, they finished a first round of fundraising, $500,000 raised, led mainly by West River Group. And if you're not familiar with them, you probably know their most famous product, which is Top Golf. And that one also is taking the country by storm. Again, to go back to a personal experience in the Venture Alliance Mastermind, we went to Top Golf in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have some great memories of that. None of them are about where I hit the golf ball or which club I used or how I beat out somebody else with that. I just remember the lights going off when someone did a great hit. I remember the guy who won one of them had never picked up a golf club before in his life. And I remember great food and drink and a lot of great friend experiences. And so that's really what Owen's company is about here. They're doing a second round now, probably a couple of months ago when we were talking, that's led by BlackRock. And BlackRock allowed them to, or actually contracted with them to put Liquor Lab experiential facilities in a lot of their major buildings, a lot of their major real estate. So they, as you know, BlackRock is a lending funding source, investor capital, and private equity is what I was trying to come up with there. And they have lots of businesses inside large commercial mixed use and office buildings. And they saw the synergy of bringing in something like Liquor Lab to allow people to have that experiential end of day experience or early evening experience of the companies that are in the building. So they're about to take Liquor Lab across the country. It's going to become a well-known name out there, like the escape rooms, like Williams-Sonoma's experience. But what I want you to do is listen to Owen in this one, specifically about how he saw a need in the industry, how he went after it, and how he tried to partner with other companies for that win-win experience. So, the entrepreneur out there observes what's not working in their space, listens to the customer, and fills the hole that the customer's asking for. That's entrepreneurship. And I think Owen does a great job of explaining that here. Is it directly related to real estate? No, but I guess you can make the BlackRock connection as he does here in the interview. But it's more about entrepreneurship, right? And in the end, I believe that's what our real estate is doing for us. It's providing that passive income to allow us to start up our own company called Liquor Lab, or to, heck, if you're the best in the world at basket weaving, you ought to be sharing it with the rest of us. So that's what I'm after, is to get people to be able to be in a position financially and with their time to share their unique genius with the rest of the world. So thanks so much for listening to this one. Enjoy fascinating discussion here with West Point graduate Owen Meyer. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me. And as I said in the introduction, we have the rare pleasure of having a West Point graduate, and I'm actually bringing him on, even though, I'm putting my bias aside. We're bringing a very successful business owner, completely startup company that's going really big, and he'll talk about that in a few moments. Previously served in the Army, a short time after West Point, as I mentioned in the introduction. Please help me join Owen Meyer. Owen, thanks for joining us.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, maybe just chronologically this round. Why did you do West Point, and kind of, how did things unfold and you ended up where you are?
Sure. So kind of a rare path. I'm a career hockey player. I played hockey my whole life. After I graduated high school, hockey players go and do a thing called junior hockey. Junior hockey is a really sort of a growth spurt mechanism to where after you graduate high school, you go play junior hockey for 2 years, and then colleges recruit you to play for their college hockey team, mostly because college hockey is such a higher level than when you come out of high school. So this is sort of a developmental spot. I was being recruited by a handful of teams that I had narrowed it down to. I didn't really know much about West Point. One of my mom's brother-in-laws had gone there. He'd done very well for himself. He's actually really high up at Stryker Medical. And, when you're a young kid, you're materialistic, and you think about, what kind of car I want and how many houses you want. And you look at someone like your uncle who has done very well for himself, is very well spoken, and obviously had a lot of opportunity in life. And I'll never forget the day when, he pulled me aside at a family reunion, and I said, Uncle Art, I'm thinking about going to West Point. What do you think? And he said, it'd be the best decision you ever made. And I said, well, I don't want the best decision I've ever made. I just want what you have. And he kind of laughed and he said, well, if you go to West Point, you won't get what I have automatically, but you'll get opportunity. And so I took the road less traveled. I played hockey there. It was probably one of the best things I've ever done for myself. It was very difficult and annoying at most parts. It made you the man you are today, though, I'm sure, as you can agree to from the Naval Academy. And then, after I got out of the military, it was one of those things where you don't really know what you want to do. You want to succeed and be challenged and grow something, be part of a team. There's all those things that are sort of ingrained in you in the military that you start looking for, and especially with respect to hockey, too. Military plus the hockey background, it was like, I just need to be part of a team that wants to win. So I, did a ton of interviews, and everybody said, do you want the job or not? And I was like, I don't really know if I want that job. And, had a couple friends that were working in the liquor industry that I remembered from New York at my time here. And I called them up and said, what exactly are you guys doing again? And they said, you should try it. It's fun. Everybody thinks it's a big party, but really it's business. It's one of the biggest businesses in the world. It's booze. So yeah. I reached out to a couple West Point guys and got a connection and started working at Jim Beam, much to my parents' chagrin because they're not big, they're not big drinkers, but did it and worked in sales there for a couple of years and became a spirit specialist, which is really when I started recognizing just the sheer volume of money that was being spent on marketing, activation, agencies, POS, like all this junk that had very little ROI. And every year, millions and millions of dollars was just the budget was reset and it was use it or lose it. So really came to the ideas that I have today, and that's where I kind of sit.
Right. So for those who haven't, researched what Liquor Lab is, you're president and CEO of a company that essentially you created, right, from the ground up. And to explain what Liquor Lab is and where you are now and where you're headed.
We like to equate Liquor Lab in a very sort of stretched way to a cooking class, except for instead of learning how to cook, you're learning how to make cocktails. So the big difference between Liquor Lab and a cooking class, though, that exists is that when you go to cooking class, it's very high impact and it's very detailed. You got to grease the pan. Is that preheated? There's never a minute off. You're always doing something when you're in cooking class. At Liquor Lab, you come in, you take your seats. It's a very fun, exciting atmosphere. You grab some food from the buffet. We teach you how to shake. We teach you how to stir. We jump right into the first cocktail. And then in between cocktails, we turn on some light music and everyone can be social and hang out, meet people, mingle. If it's a corporate event, you can have other touch points with people across the room because you can get up. And it's just a very, very fun learning atmosphere. And it's not that sit down and throw your salt into the bowl and make sure you whisk it enough. It's more like, so that's sort of the relation.
Yeah, and so kind of the key thing is it is not how to make cocktails for people who are going to do it behind the bar. You do kind of offer that more advanced class, which is probably like what most people think of as a cooking class. Like, oh my gosh, I got to go for hours and, learn the details. It's not really a fun event that you'd take your team to go do. It's not a team building or a team bonding event. This is more like, I think like the cooking class that I took on a cruise that I was on a couple of years ago. They taught us how to make the frittata, but after like doing the very initial part, they took it away and had somebody else finish it for me and do the baking part. And they gave us cocktails and we talked to our neighbors, and then we came back in and we learned how to make the desserts. And after a couple of minutes of learning how to make the desserts, that went away and we had another cocktail, and so then we got to eat them all, and it was a lot of fun. But it was more about building the team and having a good time than it was about becoming the expert at that thing. Is that more accurate? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where the value is too. I mean, the experiential economy is just growing like crazy. When I got done with my pilot year in Chicago, I started this concept in Chicago when I was working there. And when I got done with my first pilot year, I reached out to really only 2 investment firms that invested in experiential businesses. One was a company that had recently purchased Sur La Table, which is, what Sur La Table is? It's like a cooking class and slash they sell cooking tools and whatnot, sort of like a Williams Sonoma almost. And then the other company we're partners with today is called West River Group, and they are a big shareholder in what's called Topgolf. If you're familiar with Topgolf.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, Topgolf is like everywhere I go, all I see is like everybody's like, oh my God, there's a Topgolf here, let's go. And that's that experiential economy that, this next generation and a lot of people are finding more fun than buying cars and buying clothes and all that stuff.
Those are great comments, Owen. And, I think the value of this podcast for our audience, and we talked a little bit about it at the before the event, is about, anything you can share about lessons learned on transition out of the military, but more about how to start up a business and how to just pay attention to your environment and figure out where there's a need. And there's certainly, as you said, demand for experiential events. There's the escape rooms, right? Those are huge.
Huge.
And so this would apply in any industry, right? I mean, I'm sure you could find shoemakers who think it's awesome to go, I don't know, put heels on different kinds of shoes and have a drink in between, right? It's across the board. If you could talk a little bit about, Owen, maybe lessons learned on building the business.
Sure. So the way that I sort of mirror my business acumen after is an analogy as a company called Paint Night. Are you familiar with Paint Night?
No.
Paint Night is a company where, and I'm not going to do it justice, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes. A lady and her friends decided they wanted to get together and paint together and bring their own wine. And a number of years later, the company was sold to a private equity firm for, I think it was like $500 or $600 million. But the company started because it wasn't really a vision for a company yet. It was a vision of a need that a group of people wanted for themselves. And so my vision sort of is analogous to that in the sense where I was sitting around like watching all these marketing companies and agencies do these liquor events. And I'm like, I show up to a whiskey tasting. There's 6 glasses of whiskey with like a quarter ounce of whiskey in it and a blank sheet of paper in front of you. You get lectured for 2 hours and then you get to sip straight whiskey out of a glass. It's not really that enjoyable for most people. And I was thinking to myself, like, you know what I would want to do and what my friends would want to do is they would want to learn how to make a drink, turn on some music, have some fun, learn how to make another drink, turn on some music, have some fun. And that did not come from me laying in bed dreaming up a business idea. It came from me thinking about a need of what I would want to do. And, that's not to say that's how everyone should think about their business, but in certain industries, I should say, mainly the experiential industry, what better way to prove a business model than when you and all your friends who are very tough judges of experiences get together and have a blast doing something? You're onto something at that point, right? So I think, to answer the question, the second part of your question, not only, sort of recognizing that need for something that you have interest in or that you have some expertise in maybe, but also then navigating those waters into starting that business. And that I think is another story in itself. But in one sentence, I would say there's a difference between people who talk and people who do things. And you got to start somewhere, right? That lady took the painting into an empty schoolroom, took her friends to an empty classroom in a schoolroom, I believe it was, and just started painting and having fun. Like there was no charge. She didn't charge tickets. She didn't build a website. It's that proof of concept and first to market that it's very important, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. Like you recognize that the change you made, it's a service that's not being funded somehow else or fielded somehow else in the market, and you recognize it in time to take it to market. Like you said that this is not how everyone should think about their startup business idea, but I actually think it is. I mean, you just think about the lady that worked at 3M that came up with a sticky note. I mean, no one else had it, right? And she just did it because she needed it, right? But then she paid attention about how successful it was. I interviewed the gentleman in the Air Force who created the game Rollers. Fantastically successful game, but he created it because he and his buddies wanted to play the game, and then started paying attention when everyone said, "Can I buy that game off of you?" And then the sales started climbing. So, it's just about recognizing when you are actually filling a need that people value.
Sure.
That's amazing. So big things coming for Liquor Lab. Are you able to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So, we opened up here really officially sort of towards the end of January this year. So we've only been cruising for about 4 months, but every day in here is just an eye-opening experience for the customers that come here. We have got a big PR push that is organic. So people like the New York Times will come in and write about articles. And it's really an educational experience, not only for the people, but for the industry, because I've seen people walk in here and say, "Oh God, this isn't what I thought it was," because they're so used to going to a crappy whiskey tasting where they get forced to drink straight whiskey and not have any fun, that it is sort of a little bit of a hurdle for people to learn it. But once they experience it, the word of mouth and that sort of trusted recommendation from a friend goes so much further than buying marketing or ad spending or whatnot. So we're cruising here for the first few months, and it's kind of funny story. We're getting ready to do a Series A round of funding to fund our expansion. That's being put together and led by our current partners, the West River Group guys. They're just so great too, because they have an interest in Topgolf, which is an experiential business. So these guys are right in line with my vision. I mean, we're talking about people through the doors, butts in seats, people having a good time, having some drinks. I mean, it's all just such a great relationship there. So we're putting together our Series A, and then a couple weeks ago, we had a private event. We do a lot of private events during the week here. We had a private event come through with a big real estate private equity firm. And, 20 minutes into the event, one of the ladies cornered me and she said, "We're going into business together." And I said, "Excuse me?" And I didn't know much about the firm at the time. They own a huge amount of real estate in this country that is all commercial. And, things like Liquor Lab have a good fit in growing cities and in new buildings where they're trying to attract tenants or they're trying to attract people to a certain area, be it in, the River North District of Denver or in the Sears Tower in Chicago. These are places where it's a destination for people to go, but why are they staying? Do they go and take a photo and leave, or are they hanging out around there, going to the stores, going to eat food, going to the movie theaters? And so, we've got about a 10 or 12 city expansion planning on the horizon, where we are lining that up for the next 2 to 3 years. But, something that might resonate with your listeners as well is that the team that we're teaming up with to do this expansion, they own all their properties. So with respect to real estate, expanding a business that has an actual physical footprint comes with a lot of challenges. So to sort of be cut and dry with it, this particular firm, since they own their buildings, I don't have to spend money on lawyers to negotiate expensive lease agreements. They don't have to negotiate escape clauses that I need for liquor licenses. There's a whole bunch of things with respect to real estate and physical spaces of businesses that sort of become very easy to deal with now that I've partnered with a real estate company that owns the properties. So very exciting time, and something that we're looking forward to every day as far as these cities are concerned.
That's awesome. And I think that brings a new definition to strategic partner, or at least a new view of strategic partner, right? I mean, a lot of people think of strategic partner as that person who's there with the money at the right time. But that doesn't matter if they have the money, if they can't get it off the ground, right? If they go to the place, like you said, they can't negotiate the lease because maybe they don't want a liquor business on their facility or something. Or maybe the neighborhood doesn't want that, right? So having the ability to get the lease, that's the strategic part about it. Not to mention that this group's pretty well funded.
Yeah, exactly. Liquor is a strange world, right? Liquor is something that people either love or hate, or they fear, or they feel brings problems. Fortunately for us, we're not a bar, so we don't have any of the stuff that a bar has. We have a little retail store in the front of every location where you can come in and buy tool kits or cocktail kits or laser engraved bottles. And then in the back, we've got our experience room we don't have people up in and out smoking cigarettes at 3 a.m. and any of that garbage that a bar has. So, and that's one of the reasons we've been able to get our initial location here. I mean, we're in the middle of Soho in New York City on a street with, $50 million condos on them. There's no way you could ever get a liquor license here unless you were anything but we're doing.
Nice. Very cool. So about the whole idea, thinking back that this is generally first responders, police officers, firefighters, a lot of them in New York City listening, sure. I think, and EMTs, and then also active duty members and veterans. We're all looking for kind of improving our lives, improving our own financial world. And then maybe we got that business like you did, that idea sure. rattling around in the back of our heads. What have we not talked about you think is most important for this audience?
Sure. I think, with respect to that, and since I was in a very similar position, I didn't have a lot of money to sign a $100,000 lease with. So, what a lot of people don't know is when I started this company, I was actually doing pop-up events. So I was going to places where I didn't have to pay rent. I could just, get my friends in there, get to hire some press to come in and sort of pilot test it on a very, very low level. And I think as an analogous solution to what your question is, you don't have to have a lot of money to pilot test an idea these days. There's several different ways you can approach that too. There's things like Kickstarter. There's a couple other crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter as well. There's even sites now where you can put up ideas and get feedback from. There's tons of groups and meetups. Those are highly valuable early on in the very early stages. But there's, like I said, unless you're building something that requires expensive hardware, like you're trying to make a new computer system or hire some engineers to program something. For the most part, there's a lot of resources out there online where you can buy things or rent spaces or curate some sort of pilot program for very low cost and really sort of, get a pulse on your idea early on. Things cost money these days, but I think there's a lot of ways, I'm coming up with a cocktail kit right now that I'm launching another company that sort of like Blue Apron for cocktails. And my first prototype was basically made of duct tape. So, I'm not going to go to a cardboard manufacturer and pay $50,000 to have stamps and dies made. I'm going to grab a piece of cardboard from the USPS store and cut it up and duct tape it together and sort of visualize my idea there. So, even that little cardboard thing I taped together, every time I showed it to somebody, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So there's ways to test it at an affordable rate. That's kind of where I go to.
Nice. Okay. Well, listen, Owen, thanks so much for sharing all this with our audience. How can they reach out to you, and what would you recommend the audience check out other than showing up at Liquor Lab on the 12 locations in the future?
Yeah. So we have our website is liquorlaboratory.com. And from that website, we'll be posting all of our new cocktail club stuff. And also you can see events. We have a blog that we're putting up on there that has recent updates and whatnot. And then if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, follow us on Instagram at LiquorLab, LIQUORLAB. That's where you'll see all the highlights, all the humor, and all the fun stuff we're doing here, and just kind of in a nutshell.
I'm lucky enough to live about an hour south of your awesome location. In fact, I'm going to be up there all weekend with the mastermind group.
You're going to have to come by.
Yeah, would love to. So I can't wait to do it because I think I'm actually certain for me it's going to be more fun than a cooking class or a breakout room. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes.
Thanks, Sloan, again, for everything you've done for us.
All right. No, I appreciate it. And you have a great day as well.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.